My name is Magnus Aziz Alexander Banda, and yeah, it's a mouthful. And basically, what I am is that I'm an investor and an entrepreneur. So basically, yeah, I'm going to show you guys my testimony. Growing up in the household that I grew up in was division from a very, very young age. You know, because my mom was Muslim and my dad was Christian. And so you can imagine what went through a young boy's mind who was half colored, half Malawian, with French ancestry, and at the same time who had these huge, gigantic names, so to speak, a Latin name, a Greek name, and an Arabic name. So, you know, it only made sense the first time I set foot into a church, and my dad was with me at the time, and you know, I just felt so at home. And for me, that made so much sense. And ever since then, I tried to not look back, but then you see, unfortunately, what happened is that the role model, who was my father, ended up separating himself from me and my mother, and to the point of whereby he left, and so I was just left in this Muslim household who felt so comfortable with Jesus rather than Muhammad, because for me, Jesus made so much sense. And yet, you know, it was a bit of a struggle. And so, during the past years and whatnot, I kind of got mixed up with the wrong crowd. You know, I tried things like the occult and whatnot. I'm not going to go much into detail about that. And, you know, I was trying to seek an identity, because I was being persecuted for not being a Muslim. And on the other side, I was being persecuted for having a tattoo and not being Christian, you know. And so then, after my trek, you know, it made sense that, you know what, that I finally choose God, because Jesus does say that He is the truth, the way, and the life, and that no one comes to the Father but through Him. There we go. Good to see that you guys are awake. So basically, I'm going to brag on this, okay, because I don't know how many of you guys can say that. You guys were literally born again 7 days before the 7th of the 7th, 2007. For some of you guys, that is the 30th of June. Yeah, so basically, that is when I accepted Christ into my life. And I'm an all or nothing kind of a guy. And so basically, for me, that made sense. And ever since, I have been full on for God, but there have been times where I've fallen short too. And for me, life was not easy. In fact, it became hard because it was my first year out of school. I was no longer with my mates from hostel. I was on my own. And I told my mom, I was so excited, you know. It's like the Holy Spirit was in me, and I was like, yes, I'm born again, I'm born again. And then like, my mom heard. And she's like, you're what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm born again. And then, you know, like, she did not speak to me for a while. And then eventually she said to me, I think she called up my dad, and then my dad came by. Because my dad is Anglican, he wanted me to be an Anglican Christian, not a happy-clappy Christian, as he called it. Yeah, so basically, that's what happened. And then my dad said to me, you know what? No son of mine is going to become a preacher. My dad was a very successful businessman, and he said to me straightforward that no son of mine is going to become a preacher. You don't want to embarrass me. Those were the words my dad said. And my mom, funny enough, she agreed with him, but she was Muslim. And she said, yeah, no son of mine is also going to become a pastor, whatever it is you want to do. You go evangelize or whatever, you know. And so afterwards, it was a bit hard, and then I eventually started working, and through my work, I got promoted into being a manager after 6 months at a job. And funny thing is that me and my dad started becoming closer now, because now he has a son who's a manager. So basically, that's where me and my dad started having a connection. And the beauty about it all is that, you know, my dad came around, and however, the sad thing is that on the 7th of March 2009, that was last year, my dad passed away. But you know, I remember the week before, because we went to Malawi, because that's where my dad is from. The week before, he said to me, words that I savored words that I savored, you know. It's like I hung on to them. It's like I gripped onto his words when he looked me in the eye and he said, son, I'm proud of you. And for me, that made me so, so happy. And I'd never seen my dad cry. Like, he was in the army. And, you know, he always said that, you know, real men don't cry kind of thing. Yeah, well, I was wondering which Jesus he was serving because Jesus wept. But anyways, yeah, that's what happened. And he passed away. And so then I fell into a ditch again and I quit my job whatsoever. And then, you know, things looked downhill. I was being persecuted yet again. And some of the Christian friends of mine were nowhere to be seen. And I was left on my own. My mom didn't even want me. In fact, she kicked me out. And so I was on my own for a while. But then, you know, God is faithful. Amen. And, you know, when he said he'll never leave you nor forsake you, he means it. And when, in Jeremiah, when he says to Jeremiah, you know, I knew you before you were even born, and I have plans for you, plans not to harm you, but plans to prosper you for a brighter future. And I was like, wow, you know. And basically, what I'm basically telling you guys is that, you know, this is not a fairy tale life. The fairy tale is when we die, not so much here on earth, because as long as we're here, we're going to be persecuted, and we're going to be criticized, and we're going to be judged by even some of our holy priests, you know. But at the end of the day, it's how you carry your cross. And it's you being the Jesus that other people don't get to see. And for me, yeah, that's my testimony. And yeah, God is so faithful, you know. And I look at the way things have happened right now, and you know, God has just kept on elevating me from one point to the next to the next. But you know what, I stand here in absolute awe that I know that it was not by my own strength, but it was through my Jesus who carried me through all those trials and tribulations. Thanks a lot.